Welcome to this class. Today we would be talking about the concept of electoral geography. So we would be discussing about the electoral map, apportionment, redistriction. Then we would be talking about gerrymandering and the related concepts in electoral geography. So let's start with the basic fundamental of electoral geography. So when I say we talk about electoral geography, what do we mean by the word electoral geography? Electoral geography basically means understanding the political processes in a geographical area. So if I talk about electoral geography, it means understanding the political processes that exist in a specified geographical area. Okay, so for example, I have taken here the map of United States of America for elections for 2012. So the blue here shows the number of seats that possibly Obama will win and the other number of seats that Romney would win. This was one of the predictions before the elections. So the map, what I am drawing here is what is known as electoral map. And this map, what it basically does is, it gives an idea about the various districts and the regions of any country. So in political geography, electoral geography is a main component that we need to study. So there are two basic terms before studying the distortions in electoral geography. We need to understand two basic terms. First is apportionment, and next is redistrict. So what is apportionment and redistricting? Apportionment is basically allocating the number of seats, number of representatives to different fields. So for example, I have 4 different fields and I have 40 different representatives. So how will I allocate these 40 representatives into 4 different fields? So that is what is apportionment. Okay. The next is redistricting. Redistricting basically means redrawing the electoral boundaries. So, for example, we'll take an example of United States of America itself. In US, the seats are allocated and defined based on the population. So, population changes from one census to another. So, with every census, what you need to do is to redraw the boundaries. So, redistricting is basically redrawing the boundaries. So, for example, if this district has a population of 10,000 and the population in the next census has increased to say 12,000. Okay, so what I'll do is, since the population has been increased, I'll see which areas the population has increased, and for that area there would be a new representative seat. So that is what is restructuring of the seat or redrawing of the seats. For example, here are 1, 2, 3 and 4 seats. I would be redrawing the electoral boundaries, and I can make it 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. That is one option. Or I can include this seat and include this area and increase the number of candidates from that area. So that is what is basically redistricting. Now redistricting has its own meaning in different countries. For example, in Ireland, redistricting or redrawing the boundary occurs with every census. Okay, then you have the country Belgium. What happens in Belgium is you use the same boundaries, but the number of candidates or representative allocated to that boundary increase with census. So apportionment is basically based on population, and redistricting again based on population, but what you are doing is redrawing the boundaries. So whenever we talk about electoral geography, there are few things that we need to understand is, there are two basic concepts. One is the safe seat and the swing seat. Safe seat is the seat which is safe from the opposition or the rival. So you know that the opposition will not get that seat and you are very secure with that seat. The other seat is the swing seat. That means it is easily, or there is a high probability that it will swing to the other party. So when we talk about the two kinds of seat, the safe seat and the swing seat, we must be able to understand when these seats can vary based on the candidature that is standing for the election. So, to understand these concepts, there are few terms in electoral geography. First is the distortions in electoral geography. First is the Malapportionment, and second is Gerrymandering. Gerrymandering. So let's understand first Malapportionment. We already understood what is apportionment. So apportionment is basically allocating number of representatives to different fields. That is apportionment. Then what would be malapportionment? Malapportionment basically means unequal or disproportionate distribution or representation of the electoral system. So for example, this electoral system has multiple constituencies. Okay. Now what happens is the technically we say one person cast one vote, and that was led by Baker versus Carr case in the United States. So one person, one vote is the aim. But what happens in malapportionment is low population will have more representation. That is technically incorrect. So low population gains more representation. And this should not be the case. So since this should not be a case, it is a kind of distortion that occurs in electoral geography. So the first concept we understood is malapportionment. The next is gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is a very technical and very important concept to understand. So let's try to redefine this concept and understand. Now let's take an example of United States of America. You have two parties, Democrats versus Republicans. Now what happens in gerrymandering is basically selective redrawing of the political boundaries to gain the result in the election. So what I am trying to do is, it's unconstitutional first of all, very important to know. It's unconstitutional or unethical, I should say. But what I am trying to do is, to win a seat, I am redrawing my political boundaries. So gerrymandering basically violates two basic principles, is the principle of compactness and principle of equality of size. These are the two things that is basically violated under the concept of gerrymandering. This concept was initially given in 1812 by the governor of Massachusetts, Mr. Gerry. And what he tried to do was, it was basically called in the shape of salamander. So what he tried to do was, he tried to restructure or redraw the boundaries of the region to gain undue advantage and win the elections for specific regions. Now this is done mainly for to give more weightage to a particular ethnic group. So gerrymandering can be of two types, packing a district or cracking a district. For example, let me say this is a district. Okay. Now in this district there are three divisions. Okay. Now I'll draw D for Democrats. Okay. So you have two Democrats here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 Democrats here. And I'll choose gray for Republicans. Okay, now let's look into this diagram. So this district, this state has three districts. Okay. Now this district, the first district, has 2 Republicans, and here you have 4 Republicans. Okay, so this district would be predominantly Republican. Okay, this district is predominantly Democrat, and this district is again Democrat. So what can Republican do here to win, to get into or to gain advantage of the Republicans here? They can redraw the boundaries and include this region as well into a Republican. Okay, and or else I can redraw a boundary here and include these Republicans into this region. So what would happen is, this Democrat would change into Republican. So basically I am redrawing the boundary to get hold of the Republican population here. So I'm trying to win more seats. This is an example of packing a district. I am packing district from an existing district. And then is cracking a district. Cracking a district is usually done when opponents have more supporters. So for example, this is a district. So you have, let's consider Democrats as opposition, and you have 2 Republicans here, 4 Republicans here, and 2 Republicans here. So here we know Democrats is the opposition and it is more supporters. So what you'll do, you'll say, I'll crack a district. So if I crack this district and make this as another district, what would happen? Here Democrats will win, here Republicans will win. So I am getting a win over this region, which I previously did not. Okay, so this would be, so if I draw a line here, okay, what would happen after dividing this? I can say I will have a win over this district because this is now Republican dominated. Previously, this whole region was under Democratic, but now this much portion goes to Republican, and only this much portion is left with Democrats. So I am basically gaining the seats or gaining power, and that is done only by redrawing the boundaries. I just redrew this boundary, and this section went under the hands of Republicans. Okay, so this is cracking a district and packing a district, the two concepts that works in gerrymandering, and with this you can understand the concept of gerrymandering. Now, while we are talking about gerrymandering, there are three basic terms associated to it. First is, I can say wasted vote, then you have excess vote, and then you have stacked vote. Okay, so what does wasted vote means? Wasted vote means when opposition supports, when the supporters of opposition are spread across many districts but are in minority. So opposition, for example, opposition in this case, let it be Democrats. Okay, so let's understand by this example. So Democrats are spread into various districts, but in each district they are working as minority. Okay, so what would happen? There would be wasted vote, but in case of excess vote, what would happen? You have a concentration of opposition supporters in few districts. So for example, I can say California, Texas, Errata, and Wyoming. For example, these 4 districts have excess of Democrats, which is an opposition party. Since I'm taking this as just as an example. Okay, so Democrats have an excess of votes in these 4 districts. So there is high concentration of opposition parties, that is one way. And third is stacked. Stacked vote means you try to link distant areas with like-minded voters. So all the regions across United States who are Democrats would be linked under one chain. Okay, and it is usually an oddly shaped boundary or odd shaped structure that comes up. Stacked voting is most common in United States and most common among ethnic groups. Just to protect themselves and protect their minority issues, what people do is they go for stacked voting. So these are the 3 kinds of gerrymandering processes that usually occur. We have understood the concept of packing and cracking a district and how we divide the district. So this is a classic example of to understand the packing and cracking of district. Now for any electoral representation to take place, there is an important term that we need to understand is proportional representation. Now what is proportional representation? Before we start with proportional representation, there are few things about proportional representation we must be clear with. First, it takes place only in multi-member district. Okay. If there is a single person who is contesting an election, I cannot say I'll go for a proportional representation in that case. Okay. Proportional representation can take place only in multi-member districts and not single-member districts. And second, in this case, seats are in proportion to the total votes. Proportion to total votes. So for example, there is a 10-member district, okay, and there are 50% votes that go to Republican. What does that mean? 5 of the 10 seats will go to Republican. If I say 30% goes to Democrats, that means 3 of the 10 seats would go to Democrats. So this is the most fundamental thing that we need to understand about proportional representation, that seats are allocated or are in proportion to the total votes, and there should be a multi-member and not single-member district or constituency to work out a proportional representation. Now, proportional representation is of 3 types. I would represent it as PR. Okay, so PR is of 3 types. First is the party list. Party list is again of 2 types, open and closed. So what happens is, I have a ballot form. Okay, in that ballot form, I mention party A, party B, and party C. Okay, so this is a ballot form, closed ballot form. So I have party A, B, and C, and I have the name of candidates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so I can say for party A, 1, 2, 3 candidates are the name of the candidates who are fighting for party A, who are contesting for party A. For party B, the candidates' names are 4, 5, 6, and for party C, the candidates' names are 7, 8, 9. So what happened in closed party list is, I know the name of the candidates and I know the parties. I have to just select one party that I wish to vote, and then the party would later on decide who among the following should be finally act as a representative of the constituency. So for example, if I go to, I cast my vote to party A. So then there would be all the votes that would be counted for each party, and say party A wins. So then if party A wins, the party A would internally decide who among the 3 would be the candidature for that constituency. Okay. Then what happens in open? Open ballot is similar to this. You have the 3 parties, but there is a bit variation here. You have party A, B, and C, and you have the name of the candidates. What you have to do is, you have to select the exact candidate. Okay, so if I say, for example, I select candidate 3, that means I am selecting party A with candidate 3. Then all the votes would be counted for each candidate, and finally the candidate who has the maximum number of votes would be considered as the person who has won the proportional representation and will have a seat in the constituency. So this is much more detailed form of the closed party list. You have the open party list. Now let's understand the 2 other concepts. The 2 other concepts in proportional representation are mixed member. So in mixed member, you have to cast 2 votes. Okay, 1 vote is to the party. You have the list of party A, B, C, and then you have the list of candidates. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So you have to cast 2 votes, 1 to the party and 1 to the candidate. For example, I select party A and candidate 2. I don't know to which party this candidate belongs, but I select this candidate and this party. So finally, all the votes would be counted for each party and each candidate, and based on that, you will have a proportional representation by mixed member elections. Now the last, not the least, is single transferable vote. Elections in most countries where proportional voting system works on single transferable vote. Most students have heard about this term single transferable vote, but have never understood the reason as to how it works and how to understand this. So single transferable vote, what does it mean? You have a ballot form, okay? You have the list of candidates A, B, C, D. So here A, B, C, D are the candidates. And for these candidates, I have ranking 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So what happens is, what I do is rank each. For example, I rank candidate A as 1. Then I rank candidate B as 2. Then again C as 2 and D as 4. Okay, so that's my priority of ranking the candidates. So this is how you work with a single transferable vote. So this is your most favorable candidate is A, and then you have a shift towards B, C, and finally D. So this is a choice list or single transferable vote. I'll give you a very easy and simple example to understand this. Suppose there are 20 students in a class. Okay, 4 of these 20 students contest an election. So this is student 1, student 2, student 3, and student 4 who are contesting the elections. Now what happens is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Then again I have 19 and 20 here. Okay. So the remaining students try to vote to different 4 different people here. So 5, 6, 7 students voted to 1 and so on. Now what would happen is these 2 students who are at this end, 17 and 18, what they will see? They'll see, okay, this candidate is not likely to win because we are only 2 standing behind him. So he is not a candidate who would win. So let me shift my party. So what would this 17 do is 17 will jump to the candidate 3. So he'll say, I'll cast my vote to 3. Then 18 believes 3 is winning, but might be there is probability that 2 can also win. So he'll jump to 2. So what happens is candidate 4 remains with no student who is electing him. There is an addition in the number of candidates for candidate 3. Again, there is an addition for candidate 2, and candidate 1 remains status quo. Okay, so this is how single transferable vote works. So you have a threshold or a minimum limit beyond which a student will feel that this candidate can win. So for example, student 18 thought that there is a probability that candidate 2 can also win because there are 4 people besides him in line. Okay, there are 4 students standing besides him in line. So when I am doing this experiment, when I am making 4 students stand in a line who are contesting in the elections, and I am asking other 16 students to stand besides them and say which student do you want to vote for, this is a scenario that comes up. Now, there is a threshold. Threshold is the minimum probability that a person will win. So what is the threshold here? So the threshold here is valid votes to each candidate divided by 1 plus the total number of seats, and I'll add one more vote to it. So that is the minimum threshold that has to be achieved for this purpose. Okay. So this is the final method of understanding the concept of proportional representation. So in this class, we have talked about the concept of electoral geography, understanding the political processes across a geographical area. We have talked about the concept of electoral map, apportionment and redistricting. Then we have talked about the distortions, that is malapportionment and gerrymandering. And we have also understood the concept of proportional representation in terms of elections. For proportional representation, there are 3 types. We have talked about all the 3 types. That's the party list, mixed member list, and the single transferable list. Hope you enjoyed the session on electoral geography. Stay tuned for the topic on geopolitics in the next session. Have a good day ahead.